sheet. We're going to go right now. Hey, everybody. Oakland Athletics President Dave Kaval is good enough to join on short notice. I thank you very much. Where are we with the term sheet the city just presented?
Well, we took a step backwards this morning with the new release term sheet from the city. You know, we'd been in almost 3 days of marathon constant negotiations. I thought we were getting a little closer, but the term sheet as it's released really lacks details and specificity on how the infrastructure financing is going to work and who is going to be responsible for the different dollars and backstopping it. And so we just need more detail than that to be able to move forward with this $12 billion project. And we're hopeful that either the city entertains and votes affirmatively on our proposal, which we put out earlier, or a derivative of that. So, and we're still open to that, and we're trying to have negotiations to get to that.
What would you specifically like to see change between now, say, and Tuesday or tomorrow?
Well, I think there needs to be some understanding about how the offsite infrastructure works. I think we also need to have a better understanding of some of the additional taxes that they're putting on the project, the condo transfer tax, the transportation tax. These are new things that I think they're trying to generate some more dollars. But, you know, we already have $450 million in community benefits that we're putting forward, you know, $1 billion for the general fund. And I think a really innovative and creative way to approach and use SB 293, Skinner's bill, to actually make this entire project work. And we believe in that. That's why we spent so much time in Sacramento getting it approved. We don't think it should be abandoned. And we think the city needs to strongly consider the offsite IFD. It's something that's done in other communities. It's going to generate a tremendous amount of tax increment that can do a lot of positive things, both on the community benefits side and on the infrastructure side. It's kind of a win two ways over. And I'm hopeful that they'll see that that's a good part of this project.
I'm curious, why is it that it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that the city seems afraid to roll out its tax increment calculation and have a cost umbrella under which you all can appropriately negotiate? Or am I wrong?
We have not seen that. You know, we have our own internal numbers, but, you know, it's really important to have a sources and uses to understand where the money's coming from, how it's going to be spent, what are the specific items. You know, it's really like solving a math problem, Zenny. And I think it's important that you don't respond to a math assignment with an English paper, because we really need to have the numbers and we need to understand how they work, because this is a big decision from a financing perspective and just for the future of Oakland and the waterfront. You know, I think there's a way to do this. I think there's enough money in this project to make it work, but we need everyone on the same page. And we need that institutional knowledge of how to bring these really innovative and creative sources, kind of like redevelopment, to bear in a community like Oakland to make these lasting changes happen in a real way.
You know, something that bothered me, and I had an exchange with an elected official, I won't say who, but in the document, it mentioned that the affordable housing component was based on California redevelopment law. And I shot back, well, wait a minute, that was killed. So
I know.
And
yeah.
In turn, the elected official sent to me a 2000 document, year 2000 document on the Oakland Army base, to which I reminded the elected official, first of all, it's specific to the Army base, and it rests on legislation that has since been killed. So with that kind of incompleteness, right?
Sure.
How much time do we have to straighten this out from your perspective?
Well, we are really down to our last at-bat. Zenny, we're really down to our last at-bat, and we're really in a position where we need to get this sorted out immediately, or we need the city to really step up and say, hey, the A's proposal, that is a great proposal, because we do believe in that proposal, and we think that can be a win, but we need something that we know can work, or, you know, this project is just not going to be able to proceed. And that would be really sad, because we put everything into this financially, blood, sweat, and tears, thousands of hours of my time, my staff. We want this to happen. We're fighting for it to the end, but we need to partner to make this happen.
Hey, I believe it was the project manager that said that the enhanced infrastructure approach is such that they wouldn't be able to afford all of the community costs. Have they costed that out with you all to say, you know, what a properly sized, I hate to use that term, it's going to get me in trouble, but I can't help it. A appropriately sized community approach would look like? Do they have a cost for that?
Not necessarily. I think they focus more on just all the things, the laundry list, the wish list of items. Obviously, as the project generates revenue in certain categories, those things could be funded. But I think it's also important, Zenny, to understand that this project can't solve all the problems that Oakland has. And I think the risk here is that we make perfection the enemy of the good, and that we look at this and say, hey, they're not doing enough here. They're not doing enough here. We need more here. We need more there. And it's like you end up with the situation where there's no project and you have nothing. And so I think we have a very responsible community benefits plan, an infrastructure plan that's investing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in the waterfront, and a plan to pay for the stadium ourselves, which, in the last iteration, that was all paid for by the public. So there's a lot of reasons why this is a real winner. We got union labor, we got environmental sustainability because of AB 734. We got a lot of positives with this project. We're kind of at the point where we just need to know if we have a shared vision of the waterfront.
And something else too, regarding the lack of sources and uses, it seems to me that if you had it early on, you would have been, at the finish line now, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been negotiating this for a long time, Zenny. It's been a long negotiation, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So in closing, because I know I'm just out of respect for your time and we'll watch the A's, take on the organization. Oh, one other question before I let you go. Was there a discussion regarding using something other than the SB 293 Skinner? For example, I believe we discussed this briefly before. There's the Community Revitalization and Investment Authority Act, which really is more along the lines of the Standard Redevelopment Agency. And I know it's a last minute introduction, and I have to apologize because it was something that when we talked in April 2017, I didn't know existed. It was that quiet. Right. But it's used in Indian Wells, a number of other, and in Riverside, among others. And it's more effective at getting you the funds that you need, but also getting the community the funds they need without these restrictions. Has the city ever said this is why we're going in this direction other than SB 293? And I know I mentioned it early on. I take some blame for that because I was yelling about it. But are you open to maybe trying another approach if that approach can be costed out to work better and done at a time? Oh, yeah, of course. We would be open to whatever legislation or public financing vehicle is the most efficient and that creates, ways to generate project revenue that can be used to reinvest in what's happened. And so, yeah, we'd be very open to that. And we've said that from the beginning.
Go A's.
Go A's. Let's do it. Zenny, as always, thank you, my friend.
Hey, thank you for the time. See ya. So there you have it, folks. Dave Kaval, PAY's president, says he's open to any financing mechanism that actually work. And I want to thank him for his time. That was like a quick one. Okay. But you've heard it. And basically he buttressed what I was complaining about. You can't pay for the term sheet. You can't pay for the project with that term sheet. It doesn't talk about numbers. And it expresses what I have criticized for some time is the problem with this project. There's too much attention paid to non-financial issues. You need money to make the project go. You have to pay attention to the money first. And there is a lot of running away from doing precisely that. That's the problem with the project as the city is handling it. So, and a major problem really is something that should have been dealt with a year ago. That's the big problem here. It should have been dealt with a year ago, and it hasn't been. It has not been. So he's open to it. The question is, will the city work fast enough, or will it dig in its heels and say, okay, this is it, take it or leave it. I certainly hope not, because that term sheet is not well structured. It is, and as revealed in our short conversation, we covered a lot of ground in a very tiny amount of time compared to our last talk. Not that we didn't cover a lot of ground then either, but the bottom line is that the term sheet does not explain the money. And what Dave Kaval means in terms of the backstop is who backstops the bond. Now, what they forgot to put in is something that they, being the city, is something that has been worked on for quite some time. And if you're just joining me, Dave Kaval was just my guest for a quick interview. But I don't, and so, well, hold on a second. There's no reason to call names to anybody. Okay, that's somebody. If you're watching this, folks, off to the side, I'm not going to entertain that, and particularly if I don't know the name of the person that's putting that. So I'm just not going to entertain that at all. The fact of the matter is that anybody that has any experience in economic development and putting together term sheets, different from spreadsheets, but term sheets, knows that you have to explain the splits between monetary responsibilities. That's not happening there. And the city also should be painfully aware of the fact that it advanced the whole enhanced infrastructure financing district approach because, according to what they say, and we're having the community overlay so that the developer can be the backstop. But here is the fact. You don't need to do it that way. Why? Because the simple fact that A, the Athletics will be the master developer at Howard Terminal and the sole owner of the land there, and B, the subsidy will go to infrastructure for the stadium, which C, will add up to far greater than 10% of the equity in the stadium, means that D, it is a private activity bond. Private activity bonds, by their nature, as I just discussed, laid out, are such that if those bonds default, even if it's issued by the city or an agency, the developer, the Athletics, are responsible for the default. That's nothing new to California. That's not a creation of California. That's a nationwide provision. You can do it in Georgia. You can do it in Illinois. You can do it in Massachusetts. It's done in New Mexico. You get the idea. It's not new. The point is, there are a number of ways to slice the bread here, not just one. We don't have to do the enhanced infrastructure development, infrastructure financing district approach. We can use, for example, the Community Revitalization and Investment Authority Act, which basically creates a whole new redevelopment agency in Oakland, which is it's a more streamlined approach. We can have different project areas like West Oakland, Howard Terminal, Jack London, Chinatown, East Oakland Coliseum, and we can write the plan in such a way that the tax increment is shared between those project areas so that it achieves the same effect as SB 293 Skinner, which I happen to love, by the way. And I see what Dave is saying. I think we would probably fit the private activity bond within that too. But I digress. My point is that the city needs to, if legally SB 293 Skinner can't be used because of some limitation on what can be raised and spent for community uses, then we need to shift to the community revitalization and investment authority act version or approach. We would start a new authority. Now, the kicker is we would, because Oakland, I believe, still has some loose end obligations as a redevelopment successor agency, it couldn't do it alone. But it could do a joint venture with the Port of Oakland, which I think is a more logical alternative anyway, don't you? I mean, after all, it's port land that is Howard Terminal. And the port has been heavily involved in this anyway. And there's been discussion regarding, what monies the port gets and the seaport problem and everything else. So, hey, why not? Why not? So there it is, folks. My short, to the point interview with Oakland Athletics President Dave Kaval. Thank you. Subscribe, and please share your comments. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com. And when I say share your comments, please make them more meaningful than calling names. Don't call names. You know how we work, Zinsters. Think. Use your brain. Do some math. You're all smart. See you later tonight. That ends the